Maria Johnson was a dedicated nurse, working extra shifts to support her 10-year-old son, James. He was a bright, curious kid who dreamed of flying. His fascination with airplanes was endless. After months of scrimping and saving, Maria finally managed to buy plane tickets for a special trip to Chicago, where James's older brother, David, was graduating from college. The airport was buzzing with energy as they arrived. James clutched his small backpack, wide-eyed at the bustle around him, the crackling announcements, the massive planes outside, and the steady flow of passengers hurrying by. Maria smiled at his enthusiasm. "It's amazing, isn't it?" she said, gently ruffling his hair. James nodded. "Mom, do you think they'll let me see the cockpit?" Maria chuckled. "Maybe, if you ask nicely." At their gate, the airline staff announced boarding. Maria handed over their tickets to a young flight attendant named Melissa, who offered a brief smile and motioned them forward. James, practically bouncing with excitement, found his seat near the back of the plane. He pressed his face against the window, enthralled by the ground crew preparing for takeoff. Melissa walked the aisle, checking seatbelts and assisting passengers. James peppered Maria with questions: how fast the plane would go, whether they'd fly through clouds, and if they'd get snacks. Nearby travelers seemed amused by his curiosity, but Melissa didn't share their warmth. She passed by with a sharp glance, her smile replaced by a tight-lipped stare that James couldn't help but notice. Once the plane began to taxi, the safety announcements played. James listened intently, seatbelt fastened. As the aircraft lifted off, he let out a small gasp of delight, watching the world shrink below. Partway through the flight, he reached for his backpack under the seat, filled with coloring books and treats Maria had packed. It slipped slightly into the aisle, and Melissa was there in an instant. "That needs to stay under the seat," she snapped, louder than necessary. Maria quickly apologized, pulling the bag closer. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." James felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. Maria squeezed his hand in reassurance. A short while later, James accidentally bumped the seat in front of him as he tried to get comfortable. The passenger turned but didn't seem upset. Melissa, however, appeared again, her eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem here?" she asked. Maria shook her head. "No, not at all. He's just a child." Melissa's frown deepened. "We need all passengers to be considerate. This is a shared space." Maria felt her face grow hot. "Of course. I understand." James mumbled an apology, tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. As the flight continued, Melissa's demeanor only grew colder. She walked by their row without acknowledging them, even when Maria tried to ask for water. It seemed like she was on the lookout for any excuse to find fault. During the snack service, James accidentally dropped the small juice carton he'd been given. It rolled into the aisle, and Melissa stopped abruptly. "That's enough," she said, her voice cutting through the cabin's hum. Maria looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" "I've warned you multiple times," Melissa snapped. "This behavior is disruptive to other passengers." Maria's jaw tightened. "He's a child, and he's doing his best." Melissa shook her head. "I'm sorry, but this is unacceptable. I'll have to ask you both to leave the plane." Her words fell like a thunderclap. Passengers nearby turned in shock. Maria stood, voice trembling. "You can't be serious. We haven't done anything wrong." "I've made my decision," Melissa replied coolly. "Please gather your belongings." Tears streamed down James's face as he clung to his mother. Maria's hands shook as she reached for their carry-ons, her mind spinning. Why was this happening? They had done nothing to deserve such humiliation. A man seated nearby spoke up. "This is outrageous. The boy hasn't done anything wrong." Another passenger chimed in, "She's targeting them. This isn't right." Melissa stiffened but held her ground. The safety and comfort of all passengers is my responsibility. Tension mounted until the pilot emerged from the cockpit, expression grave. He listened to both sides as the murmurs of discontent grew louder. After a tense discussion, he overruled Melissa. Maria and James would be allowed to stay. Melissa's face tightened with frustration, but she stepped aside. Maria sank into her seat, holding James close. The rest of the flight was quiet, but any joy in the trip had vanished. Upon landing, Maria filed a complaint with the airline. The story went viral after another passenger posted it on social media, triggering widespread outrage. The airline issued an apology, and Melissa was suspended pending an investigation. But for Maria and James, the damage had been done. What should have been a joyous adventure had turned into a painful memory. In the days that followed, support poured in from strangers, many sharing similar stories and calling for accountability. Though the experience couldn't be erased, Maria vowed that James would never stop dreaming, because no child should ever be made to feel like they don't belong. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did sharing it. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. And if you really loved it, share this with your friends and family. Let's spread the word together. Thanks for watching. Keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep exploring. See you next time.